Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the UFC Louisville card. And I promise you, we won't stop the segment too soon. McGregor versus Chandler at UFC 303. Sounds like it's on. We'll go through it. By the way, out in Anaheim, California, the 209 got into it with the 305. In the 714, we'll give you the 411. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con. And look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's my co-host on the twice weekly podcast. Check it out. You can catch the shows on MMA Junkie. The fight analyst, Dan Tom, is back. Check out his podcast, Protect Your Neck. Always great to have the Flying Hawaiian with us, and Danny Segura returns to SBC as well. He also has a show called Hablemos MMA para los que hablan español y quieren consumir las noticias en español. Check it out. Cold Coffee will be on the ones and twos, but before we get started, if you would kindly hit the like button, like right now, I'd greatly appreciate it. In fact, why stop there? Smash that subscribe while you're at it, and you'll be thanking me later. Lots of great and free content. Let's get into it. Let's talk about that fight card that took place in Louisville. A lot of slugging went on out there, especially in the main card. Nasruddin Imavov defeated Jared Cannonier in the main event. A 12-5, which happens a lot in college hoops. If you guys are March Madness fans, you know what I'm talking about. But those are our rankings. Imavov came in at number 12. He beat the number 5 fighter in Jared Cannonier. This loss in particular will definitely hurt Cannonier's title hopes. And it comes with controversy, as veteran referee Jason Herzog called the fight while Cannonier was on his feet. Hurt, but still standing. Let's unpack this fight and the stoppage. Danny Segura has the first take. Danny, man, your thoughts on that fight, the way it unfolded and the way it ended?
Yeah, the stoppage, it was not a good one. I mean, Jared Cannonier was still standing, but we've seen standing TKOs be a thing that that can happen and that it's more than justified. But he was still had his hands up. He was still intelligently defending himself. He was firing back a little bit, looking to close the distance. Yes, he was hurt. Yes, he was not in an ideal situation. Yes, Imavov would have likely finished that fight right then and there, but you don't know. He was still, again, fighting back. He was still covering up. He needed a few more seconds. I don't think it was a fair stoppage. We know Cannonier's tough as hell, so we've seen him in these situations before, and we've seen him come back. Yeah, bad stoppage. Also, the fight was pretty close until the moment. It's not like he was taking a beating for 2-3 rounds, and then all of a sudden, no mas. You don't want to see any more damage. No, it's a fairly even contest with a really rough patch for Cannonier in the last few seconds of that round. So, yeah, I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think Cannonier got kind of screwed there, and it sucks. He hadn't fought in over a year. 40 years old, as you mentioned, George. This probably shoots his chances of fighting for the belt once again, but we'll see. But bad stoppage.
Yeah, and the B-roll, excellent job. Cold Coffee shows he was still standing. The hands were up, and he immediately protested. A lot of times with standing KOs, like we'll pick on Ronda, I guess. That's what we do here as media. Remember when she was out against Amanda Nunes, she had to be held up. She was standing, but she had to be held up. I think there's a big difference between the two. I agree with everything you say, Danny. How about you, Dan? You share the same sentiments? What did you think of the fight and the stoppage?
Yeah, the fight was, going as expected. It's another typical middleweight fight, the main event that's going 5 rounds, and it was showing to go there. And it's hard because you can't say, oh, maybe the ref thought refs don't think about those things. Just like, to be fair, Jared Cannonier has proven that he can take damage and come back, whether it's against high-class fighters like Robert Whittaker in a losing effort and still rock them at the end of the fight, or getting rocked by Marvin Vettori his last time out in a 5-round fight, and then being able to come back and rock Marvin Vettori multiple times and win the fight. So you can never say never. And let's also keep in mind, Jared Cannonier was up on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards going into that. And even though it was looking bad for him, judges are real hesitant to give that 10-8, even more veteran judges, much less the mixed crew of local judges that we were seeing, hence all those split decisions we saw. So that's very frustrating for Cannonier. Now, Jason Herzog is a top shelf referee, and I still stand by that. And even as somebody who, definitely, didn't like that result, let's just say as well, for whatever that's worth, I will say in Herzog's defense is that It's not as bad as falling face forward like a plank, guys. But whenever you turn your back, that is also in the neighborhood of triggering body language for referees. And in Herzog's defense, even though I don't agree with the stoppage, I don't think it was a good stoppage. In his defense, though, we've seen referees stop fights many times just because you can't give that body language. And Cannonier was okay at the time, but prior to that, he was giving bad body language. So it was one of those things where I could maybe see why, but the time that Herzog decided to stop it, it looked like Cannonier was already on his way to recovering. So it's real tough.
Dan, great pulls there on those two fights that you referenced. And also a big shout out to Dan, Tom, and Goes, who did go to the ABC conference that they had last year, where they talked about these things and they listened intently. I remember parts of what you're saying, turning the back. You see Herzog positioning himself. He took a big step when he saw that. So a very, very nice connecting of the dots. Goes, how about you, man? What did you think of the fight and the stoppage?
No, I thought the fight was interesting. A lot of adjustments being made in the middle of the fight, and I thought it was a good fight, but things were starting to kind of tread in Imavov's favor, right? I think aesthetically, there were a couple things in that closing sequence that didn't help. One, he didn't really go after Cannonier that fiercely, right? He kind of walked him down almost like a Terminator. So that I think didn't help a little bit. I thought when Cannonier went back against the cage, he kind of churned a little bit and then threw a big right hand, which kind of almost gives you the sense that, if you're trying to, here it is right there, you could almost say, hey man, I was playing possum. I was waiting for him to come in so I could throw that hook. There were just a couple things there that made that all look bad. But for Jason Herzog, it's a guy who does this on the regular, and for the most part, he is very, very solid. I think what separates some of the better refs from the less refs are how you bounce back from situations like this, right? Because no matter what happens, this is a very difficult job, and these guys go through this ups and downs. If you go all the way back to Big John McCarthy, even Herb Dean, they kind of tend to come in like twos or threes, like waves of these situations. I think it's really how you bounce back from it. I hope Jason Herzog can look at it and just admit, look, I made a mistake, but bounce back from it, Jason, because that's what I think separates all these referees from each other. Cannonier, unfortunately, he's going to take a little tumble. It probably wouldn't be as bad as if maybe he were knocked out, but I think the way the fight was going, his age, it's just kind of difficult. They don't really get behind him too much, so it's a really big uphill to climb now at this point, right?
Playing possum, man. That's interesting. As you said it, I thought, holy cow, he did connect. You guys remember who the king of the playing possum was back in the day?
Who?
Scott Smith. Remember that? I think he did two of those, two big ones, man. I don't know if it was Strike Force, Elite XC, or whatever, but he was a UFC veteran and he pulled a couple of those off.
And I'm not saying that.
So
I thought you were going to say Iancu Talava.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not saying that he did that. I'm just saying he can make that argument. When you look at it, you could say, I was playing possum. I was just waiting for him to come in.
And this is in slow motion. All this is happening so fast. Herzog has built a resume and a reputation that, what can you do, man? He's one of the best in the business. Yep. You can't pull him out, put someone else in. That other person might have done the same thing. I don't know. But quick go around real quick. Was it fair or foul, the stoppage? Danny Segura.
Foul, man. Not a good one.
Okay, Dan?
Foul.
Ooh, Goes?
Foul.
Okay, so we're not slighting the ref and his abilities and his skills and his history or anything like that. We're just saying this one was a bad call. I think I agree with you guys. Yeah. All right.
People make mistakes, man. I see some people in the comments saying that, and it's absolutely true. And like Go said, like the only thing you can do now moving forward is try to correct that and become a better referee from this. And I agree with that sentiment, and I think all that is great. But at the end of the day, we're talking about people's careers, right? If Cannonier would have won this one, let's say that fight would have continued, he would have won a decision. He would have been on a 3-fight win streak. And I'm not saying he would have been next for the title, but he would have been a lot more closer now than what he is now, right? So, just when we're talking about people's careers, like we're really like changing trajectories of people's lives, of people's legacy, of their income. So, a lot on the line here.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, now let's give the winner his flowers. We've been talking about Cannonier and the stoppage. Next for Imavov, Goes, what direction would you point him to if you're in that matchmaker meeting tomorrow?
Well, see, the thing is with a lot of these divisions in the UFC, that a lot of them are just clogged up at the top right now. And so, he has the option of he could either sit around and wait for a couple of results here and there, or if you just want to get back in there and do something right away, a guy like maybe Brendan Allen, I think is somebody that matches up well. I think that would be fun and can give both of those guys some action right now while everything's a little logjam at the top. And to be honest, we don't even really know what's going on at the top. So I think something like that might be good for him.
Yeah, he's not booked. I'm talking about Allen, but he is making noise for sure. And the UFC is going to Paris, in September, I believe, like 1 week after the Sphere or before the Sphere. So if Imavov is ready to go, I'm sure he would love to be on that card. But yeah, give him a big name. I agree with that. Good stuff there goes. Look, on the co-main event, some slugging went down there too. Man, that's one nice thing about the main card. We had some really, really nice finishes. And a guy we were all kind of worried about, should Reyes retire? He's on a downslide. He came up big, guys, against a notable striker. Dustin Jacoby used to throw down for glory, kickboxing, not just MMA, but he's done some kickboxing at a high level. Reyes, of course, finished him. He's 34 years old. Dan, what did you think of Reyes' performance, and is he officially back?
Well, as somebody who picked him and played him as an underdog, I was very happy with his performance. And I will say, shout out to the Southpaw Report. It aged very well. One of the things in my Southpaw Report was that Jacoby, though being a skilled kickboxer, George ain't lying, folks, about that. However, when I went to dig deeper, he's always had trouble with southpaws and particularly left hands, even when not from a southpaw, whether it's Poatan Pereira in kickboxing or Alonzo Menafield in MMA. Those left hands have been a common culprit. And well, Reyes is a left-sided southpaw, man, and he really showed that, showed those counter shots that I clipped out. And, more importantly than that, how can you not just be happy for Reyes? I mean, this space only really cares about the winners, and it's kind of how the fan base tends to be. But I don't know. I personally find it very inspiring seeing people go through long, dark times like that guy had to go through to be able to still get a win. I really like that stuff.
Bro, I'm with you. I was really, really happy for him. You could just see he was emotional. The team was emotional. When you talk about a 3-fight losing streak, bro, that can occupy years. Not like, in football, you lose 3 straight. Well, shit, you just had a bad November or an October or something like that. Hell, you might still win that 4th game. But in MMA, it can take a long time. That's a long time to not be happy about your job, your career. Great stuff there from Dan Tom. All right. Let's continue here with the card. Raul Rosas Jr. What should be next for this guy? That fight was a lot of fun. There wasn't as much slugging going on. There was some great grappling there, though. Reminded me of Nick Diaz and Diego Sanchez years ago, like a couple of little slinky lizards, I think one of them said. Danny Segura, what'd you think, man? This was really, really fun.
First of all, that post-fight interview, I don't know what the hell happened there with Raul Rosas Jr., but that was just fantastic. But back to the original question, which is, what did I think of his win over Ricky Turcios? I thought it was amazing, man. I tweeted this because I feel like Raul Rosas gets a lot of slack just because, he's all hype. He's only famous because he's 19 years old and he entered the UFC as an 18-year-old, this and that. But so many MMA fighters that are now deep into their careers wish they would be this good at 19 years of age. I mean, he's got a very, very solid back take, very, very good grappling, very tough. And not only that, dude, he's fighting in front of a packed arena, deals with the media perfectly fine, deals with the pressure. You know how many teenagers would have folded at being, at that kind of stage? Raul Rosas Jr., I do think he's a special talent. Will he be champion? I think it's too early to tell, but does the UFC have something special here? Someone that is going to be able to pick up important wins as he goes through his career? Absolutely. He's a hell of a fighter. So I thought it was great. He's showing evolution. He's showing improvement. I saw a little bit more. He's fighting a little smarter now, better decision-making, which I think that's what kind of hurt him in his only defeat. Man, this was an A+. I loved it.
Not only did he have some great offensive grappling, how about the defense he had to get out of? Because Turcios took his back, body locked him, attacked the neck, switched different types of grips as well. But yet Rosas stayed composed, fought the hands, and then turned the tables and got the same finish. So I got to give a lot of props to that defense. A lot of fighters would have folded. Also, the comments section was brought up earlier in the show. Yes, you can participate in the show here. leaving a comment, a question. We'll try and address it. Obviously, the more quality the comment or question, we'll get to those first. But a quick couple shout outs. Sky Vizen, L Daddy. I want to give a shout out to him. Phil led things off. He's chiming in on Conor McGregor and what's happening with that fight. And we'll get to that in just a second. Mark England, let's go. Chris Goes Wild. Joseph Boza. You can leave comments, questions. We'll get to them. And remember, since the show is live and some of you join later on, we may already be moving on, and so I can't get to those questions. That's why it's important to be here live at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You follow along with the show, and we'll try and get to a lot of these questions and comments. So let's keep it going. Goes, any thoughts on Raul Rosas Jr., man? This guy, 19 years of age, super popular, keeps getting better, kind of already fought adversity when he took that L in Miami last year. Your thoughts on this kid?
Look, I think he's still a little green, but he has a ton of upside, right? And if you look at the division he's in, like, is there really any rush to put him out there? Like, I mean, there's a lot of bad dudes in this division. So I think you just kind of take it one fight at a time. I do like one of the comments here in the chat. Instinct RT says, Rosas at the Sphere. Look, man, he fits that. If Dana White is really going to do what he says he's going to do, put that kid on that card. Keep doing these types of things. But I think you have to take him slow, you know. Aside from everything that he's done that's been pretty remarkable and pretty impressive, he is a young kid, man. And we really have to kind of look out for him a little bit in his career. So I would say go really, really slow, but we could have something here in a couple of years.
That's what Instinct RT is also saying. Rosas at the Sphere. Dan, you pour over a lot of footage, man. When's the last time you've seen somebody like this that we're all excited about, that's just got upside? He's got fan attention. What are your thoughts on Rosa and his climb?
It's tough to compare him to anybody really right now, with the age and whatnot, because there are a lot of things that came through and a lot of things that, maybe didn't quite yet, So, Macy Barber is still hot, for example, but even she herself had to kind of rearrange her goals from being, the youngest champion. So I'm not hating there. I'm always very trepidatious on that, especially with the hype. That being said, what Danny said earlier was right. That hype, unfortunately, gets Rosas a lot of trash talk, and I definitely don't want to feed into that. I picked him to win. I'm very happy for the kid. Seems like a good kid. That being said, as an analyst, there are some things that still worry me. I still feel like he's very tunnel vision in what he is good at. Not that, taking Ricky Tercios down wasn't the path of least resistance, but continually to go for the same position at the risk of him almost getting caught in the very position he finished from is really worrisome. So any gamblers out there, maybe looking to jump off the train at a certain point, that time will come, because Rosas Jr. is young. But for Rosas Jr.'s haters out there, just because this guy loses doesn't mean he's not good. If he loses again, he's so young. He has so much more to go. Just give him time and kind of let him breathe. And hopefully the UFC matchmakers can do the same as much as they can anyways.
Chris Goes Wild says Raul Rosas Jr. could maybe fight Ronnie Lawrence, O'Callaghan, Loughran next if those guys are still on the roster. They all have similar records. Cayman Ryder says Rosa Jr. reminds me of Hooper. He kind of reminds me a little bit of O'Malley, except the grappling version, but just somebody that's soaring upward, has that young look and appeal to him. But Dan, I wanted to ask you a question. Tercios attacked that neck pretty well and looked like he even got underneath, or at least was cranking on that jaw. When he tried to tuck his hand, underneath, Rosas managed to get to it, but yet when the script was flipped, Tercios couldn't peel off the hand. What did Rosas do that was correct that Tercios didn't? Because they looked almost identical. It's just Rosas, like I said, did manage to peel off that hand.
The ironic part is I think it just came down to offense, because not only was both defenses sketchy, to your point, George, I would actually argue Rosas Jr.'s defense was even more sketchy. He was in the position for longer, which could say that, back to my offense point, maybe, Tercios' offense wasn't as good, despite Tercios being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and technically outranking Rosas, which again, I was so surprised Rosas just, being do or die for the sub. Go for some ground and pound. The guy's never been submitted before. Hats off that he was able to do it. But looking at how he did it, I did not actually. That was what I disliked the most, was Rosas Jr.'s lack of hand fighting. But why Rosas Jr. was successful, I don't know if it was so much as Tercio's defense on the criticism there, more of a compliment to Rosas Jr.'s offense of hiding that hand, being aggressive with it. And that's what it takes, because guys know the defense so well. And Rosas Jr. is obviously comfortable with his defense, but too comfortable for my own liking. Like, I know you're probably good at reconstructing the situation, you're good at closing, but basic hand fighting, man, that was gone. That was really scary and a bad look, in my opinion.
Yeah, and both guys threatened with the Gable grip and then readjusted. It was really, really fun watching. Folks, you should watch the fight again if you haven't, especially after hearing the analysis here from the guys. But I mean, I don't think Tercio's stock dropped much, but you could just tell he was definitely devastated.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. So this past week, obviously, if you'll recall, about 7 days ago, we were all like, oh man, is 303 going down, meaning the main event, McGregor versus Chandler, because we started the show early because we were going to go directly to a press conference that was going to take place in Dublin, Ireland. Of course, we had to lead the show off by saying that ain't happening. McGregor, I guess, canceled, right? So this past week, we tracked the updates regarding Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, and though nothing seems 100% definitive, it most certainly feels like the fight is more on than off. So here's what went on in the past 7 days. Conor McGregor released comments about the cancellation. He obviously apologized, and there we go. You can see right there. In consultation with the UFC, today's press conference was canceled due to a series of obstacles outside of our control. I apologize to my Irish fans and fans around the world for the inconvenience and appreciate your passion and support. I can't wait to put on the greatest show of all time in the Octagon. So, he addressed it. He didn't say it was off. He didn't say specifically he would put on the greatest show of all time on June 29th. So, we were just kind of taking it as it goes. Then Michael Chandler says, he goes Martin Luther King on us. He says, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Walk on, see you at the top. But he did hashtag 303. And folks, trust me here, as we're trying to put things together, we're not getting too many definitive clues, right? No hard yeses or hard no's. But then Chandler puts out this Instagram post. He says, if you're looking for me, I'll be out in Tennessee. No way out of the life we chose. Walk on, see you at the top. That one, I think, got us all nervous because he trains at Kill Cliff in South Florida, but he lives in Nashville, Tennessee. So someone canceling their camp 3 weeks out, that's a bit concerning, right? I think we're around Wednesday or so. And so we're all thinking, oh man, now what? I'll tell you what's next. Conor McGregor posts himself smiling. He's at what appears to be a medical facility. And, he just kind of gives us an emoji of him flexing. But the smile kind of, I guess, makes us feel a little bit better. Let me stop right there and just fill in, guys. At that point, what were you guys thinking, and what are you thinking? I'll get to the end, but what were you thinking at that point? Danny, did you have any thoughts at that point, whether this thing was more on or off?
Well, before that photo, I thought a lot of this had to do with contract negotiations. And I think that could still be the case, right? We know that he has 2 fights remaining on his contract. We know that he hasn't signed a new one, or for what he has informed us. And we know a star of that caliber is usually tied down with a big contract, right? So maybe seeing the $20 million gate, all these records, maybe there was some sort of contract disputes, whether they wanted to sign him longer or whether McGregor wanted a bigger piece of the pie. And they're like, okay, you don't want to play ball. Okay, I'm not showing up to tomorrow's press conference. How about that? But then when we see this photo of McGregor in this so-called medical facility where we see some, I think those are hip models right there, I believe. Not to get all scientist here and all, let me put on my tinfoil hat on, but now I'm thinking injury. If something happened, again, I don't know if these are mind games for McGregor, but I don't think it's too far-fetched that, he is 35 years old, coming off a huge injury. Something happened along training camp, and there's maybe been discussions of, should we postpone this? Should we not? Let's not address anything at the press conference. Let's just figure this out. I don't know if McGregor's going to go into UFC 303 100% healthy, if that fight's still even going on. But yes, that's kind of my line of thinking at that point in time.
We get to Friday, and then McGregor posts himself sparring. Now, again, we can put the tinfoil hat on and say, well, when's that from, right? We don't know, but he posted it. So it kind of gets us to think, well, I guess this fight may be on, maybe not. And guess what? On Saturday, the UFC puts out a promo for this fight, UFC 303. I think we have it handy, right? We can let's put it on because it's pretty slick, and it's pretty slick for one, but two, I think it settled us down a little bit.
Sorry, G, I don't have that promo. Sorry, buddy. I have a different promo. I have the Roku promo. Sorry, buddy.
Okay, that's my bad, everybody.
Okay,
and that's
we got an appearance from Cold Coffee.
That's our producer,
is good enough.
Cold Coffee, who travels all over the world, grinds like an MFer, a BMFer, and I'm glad you guys got to see him because he's the glue that keeps this show going. So anyway, a promo was put out on the fight card. I think a lot of us started to settle down at that point. And then Michael Chandler does the Pivot podcast. He says the fight is on, and he talks about the cancellation of the Dublin press conference, how that went down or whatever. But he says the fight is on. So now let's turn it over to Dan and goes. Dan, you go first. What are your feelings about all this, man? They are messing with our minds a little bit. And this is pretty serious stuff. We're going to do the job like we always do. But, man, there's people that are traveling across the pond. There's people that have shelled out some money. You know, you do have a right to ask for your money back if this thing is on or off. But it's not easy to navigate off days for a lot of people and travel and things like that. But what are your thoughts on how all this is unfolding?
Yeah, I think my first thought actually was what Danny said. My head went to contract stuff. But what immediately, maybe it's my contrarian brain and everybody just ogling over like Conor, just like he touches a zipper and people pull out Dixie cups. Like it's insane the way they react to this guy. Yeah. So part of me is like kind of just trying to steer away from that. But honestly, it seems like kind of silly. Like part of me is like, dude, is any of this even real? Like maybe he just missed a press. Guys, I don't know if we've heard of the Diaz brothers before, but like missing press conferences for big fights, this isn't anything new. And it doesn't necessarily mean the fight isn't going to happen. And the fact that like they're doing the cryptic things, I almost feel like they're leading into it because that's what it is now. It's all about engagement and messing with people and, a stupid fake Paul guy going, oh, I know the reason, but I'm not going to tell you guys. engagement. And it's also, if I could put my tinfoil hat on, shouts to what George said earlier, the fact that Dana and the UFC didn't come in and say anything, I get that fuels the conspiracy theory, but my conspiracy theory on that is the fact that, like, again, back to this engagement, mystery promotion thing, that works for the promotions too. And you could argue that this is actually helping them promote the card more than trying to get and having to pay and deal with Conor to do promotional tours, which is not as easy as it was before. Why not let this be like a bonus promotion? You don't have to burn any calories. And here's why it's a tinfoil hat and why it actually makes sense. It allows Dana to come back and dunk on the media. No, it was what's going on the whole time. You guys listen to the media. It was the scumbag media that led you wrong. And he's letting us walk right into that trap right now. We're walking right into that trap for him. It's going to go off without a hitch, and it's going to be the media's fault. Per Dana.
Dan, Tom, let me put my double tinfoil hat on, though. That to me is a ridiculous theory that people are throwing out like, oh, this is great for marketing. I know we're talking about it now, but they had almost 10,000 tickets sold because it was a free event, but at least RSVP'd for that. That's 10,000 phones right on Conor McGregor, sound bites, the whole thing, Dublin, Ireland, something McGregor wanted. There had to be a reason. I don't think this is a huge marketing promotion. I think if anything, UFC 303 has been vastly underpromoted and badly needed that press conference.
We're gonna kick it to the ghost here, but I just gotta say one thing. You would be absolutely correct, Danny, if we weren't in this point where if the UFC actually still cared about their audience and still cared about their matchmaking, that would be the point. But guys, we're going back to live programming. It's like, no, we're at the Apex. And in fact, what we saw what the wrestling did with the Apex, they're not even doing anything there. But, he's worried about this one-off at the Sphere so he can dunk on us there. We make the fights fans want to see. Constant middleweight events and constant rematches nobody asked for. Rematches on the prelims at least once a week now. I've been calling for this trend since 2022. See, if they actually cared about the live events, but now they can make gold out of crap now. They can go to some random market with a lower than Apex level card that we saw this last weekend, and they're going to do their power slap number thing with it. This was the most engagement from a 45-year-old Cambodian midgets with only one leg. That's right. That's what we got. And they're going to find some number or some angle to have the most of something. They'll be fine either way. I know it's a pay-per-view. I know it's Conor. But how much Conor have we had? How important has it really been for them to get Conor to the dance? How many times have we gotten Conor? The UFC doesn't care about that anymore, man. It's turnover. It's whatever fits the schedule. They'll take what they can get, and they improv and move with the punches now.
Chat room, let us know what you think. Is the fight on or off? We've given you a sequence of events. We've given you some info for you to chew on. I'm going to get to Goza's take in just a second, but Joseph Boza says, this is Conor. I won't believe anything till the door closes. It is starting to feel that way, Joseph. Phil says, Ali just came out today and said, very, very possible if Conor beats Chandler, he will fight Islam. Okay, I'm sorry. That's not really addressing the fight, but thank you, Phil. That's not bad. I'm not clowning. I just didn't read that properly before here. I want to keep with the theme here. Young Barrymore says, can't show up to a press conference with a noticeable injury. McGregor, very smart. Yeah, I mean, you could have put a curtain and he could have already been sitting, right? I guess you wouldn't have done the face-off if he did have a noticeable limp. So I understand that as well. Goes, what do you think, man? You've kind of seen a lot of this stuff going on. We remember that. Remember at the Mandalay Bay when Diaz didn't show? We were already sitting there and they had to rearrange that fight card as well. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, I think a lot of people that are tuning into the show, they're MMA fans, but a lot of us are combat sports fans, right? And we're just coming off of the heels of what Ryan Garcia did, right? And so I think we're all just a little on edge with all this, all these jokes that possibly I'm doing this or whatever, I'm trolling that. So I don't know. I've gone back and forth. The thing that stood out for me that I've just always found odd is if you're the UFC, you want to shut this down ASAP. Like Danny said, like you want to sell tickets. There are people coming from other countries. It's International Fight Week. You want them to make their purchases. You want them to spend money. And I feel like you can just kind of put your foot on the brakes right there and just tell everyone, look, man, this fight's, it's happening. Buy your tickets, show up, do all your stuff, because that Irish contingent, for anybody who's ever been in a Conor McGregor fight week in Vegas, they take over, man. It is crazy. And you want that. You want that to kind of show off your sport a little bit with what's going on, especially when you consider how many cards we're kind of losing overseas. This is the fight capital of the world, and we want to represent in Las Vegas. So I've always thought it was kind of a little weird there. I know Dana said, look, Conor's the king of mind games, but look, man, play all the mind games you want. Have you not seen Michael Chandler for the last couple of years? Like, this dude's going to be prepared. He's not going to overlook them. Mind games aren't going to really work. Buckle down and just do the work, Conor. If you're hurt, you're hurt. But just do the work. I mean, you've already got something in your favor. It's at 170. That's good enough. Do the work, show up, and fight. I hope we do get to see this fight. If we don't, it's so unfortunate, man, with everything that's played out. If I'm Michael Chandler, I think I just cash out and do something else at that point.
And Goes, to be clear, are you talking about Ryan Garcia and his antics about a month ago? Or are you talking about Ryan Garcia this past week and thinking he's part of the U.S. Olympic hockey team trashing a hotel?
Oh my God. I guess that's kind of a badge of honor really in boxing, but yeah, that was pretty nuts too.
Yeah, I was wondering if you thought it was like antics or if McGregor was then going to pop and then get arrested after fight week.
That's true.
Instinct RT says, I don't want to fall for Garcia 2.0. He's on the same timeline here or wavelength as Goes. Unbreakable, titanium, shinbone, says Josh Wallace. Phil says, if anything, this has hyped the fight up more. You could be right. I could see a documentary on just this alone. And yes, the media will get dunked on if Dana White has anything to do with it. Scott Christian says, it seems to me it is the UFC's responsibility to assure the fans that things run smoothly. You're right, bro, 100%. But what I've realized is the UFC is such a money-making machine that I feel like they kind of know the fans are just there and that they don't appreciate them like they used to. That's my personal opinion. Like truly the love affair I think that Dana had with the fans, it seems to have a little bit more of a distance in between them. Joseph Boza says, Josh Wallace loves Dan Tom's Dana impersonation. Joseph Boza says, you should see his Nate Diaz. He does a better one there. Joseph Boza says, did Conor make the UFC look stupid, though, for basically putting a press conference together on about 40 hours notice, sell 10,000 tickets? Dana flies over after 3:02. says at 12:30 a.m. day of no press conference. This is all very true, guys. Look, we gave you the timeline. Obviously, keep it locked on MMA Junkie. You'll know when we know when the fight's official. And I think we all agree it has to either come from McGregor or the UFC. Chandler can say what he wants. Much respect to that dude. We know him very well. But I think most people, their fears will be quelled when they hear it from those other two parties. And hopefully it's at the same time or something like that. We move on, though. Two of the biggest MMA draws and original BMFs. Well, them and their teams got into it at a press conference in Anaheim, California. Also the happiest place on earth. Some people like this type of chaos. Others don't. Where do you stand, guys? Is this good promotion? Goes. What did you think of the fisticuffs there?
I think it's something that card needed, right? When it was first announced, I thought a lot of us were a little bit confused because they've already done the MMA part, and Jorge Masvidal won that very convincingly. So it kind of happened in reverse. Now they're gonna box to settle what, right? Like we feel like everything's already been settled. So this was a card that was lacking a little bit of that fire. Sorry, they've just been kind of quiet. You could see Masvidal has been poking a little bit, trying to get something out of Nate, but Nate just doesn't want to do his end on the promoting wise. He feels like he's a fighter, and that's his job to show up and fight. But it was just starting to kind of lose some steam. This right here, I think, is why people tune in to see Nate Diaz, the things that he brings to the table. This kind of put the stakes a little bit higher, and it's enough, I think, to generate a couple buys, I would imagine. But I don't know, didn't it get you a little bit more fired up than you were before?
Yeah, I kind of like that shit, man. I got to be honest. It reminds me of, the mean streets of Santa Ana where we grew up and the fights that would take place at Jack in the Box, behind Jack in the Box, actually. This kind of had that feel to it. It certainly wasn't the happiest place on earth for some, but something went down here. Masvidal was actually in this. We got all of this, by the way, on our socials and on MMA Junkie if you want to check it out. Cold Coffee's playing it for you guys right here, but this is where things kind of escalated a bit between the coaches, some guy named Killshot from the Diaz camp, and Jorge Masvidal's boxing coach. And then Masvidal actually steps in. Nate Diaz had kind of already walked off, so there's really not much going on with him. Although later on, when he's doing a scrum with the media, he starts yelling at these guys. But as you can see right here, things really, really started to escalate as the parties were getting close to each other. You can kind of see Masvidal almost straight in the middle with the beard and the ponytail. And here we go. Things go off right here. There's this coach in the red. Geez, look at all those camera phones, man. We did not have that at Jack in the Box back in the day. Otherwise, a lot of people would have got suspended. But here they go. They're going at it right here. There's Masvidal in the yellow. One of the guys on the Diaz side, he got all bloodied up. Dan Tom, you're a martial artist. You're also Hawaiian, and I know they love to throw down in Hawaii. Where do you sit on this whole thing, man? Were you into it, or more on the side of nah, man, this ain't cool?
I was just thinking about your comment at Jack in the Box, man. I mean, like this was like we didn't have this when we were kids. Could you imagine the fight at the end of the movie Dazed and Confused, if they all start pulling their cell phones out instead of helping poor Nikki Katz there getting beat up? You know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be how a lot of people meet their end. It's not the punches; it's the fact that they're getting punched in the face, and instead of helping, everybody's just filming with their cameras. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to resort to Nate to this, where I think guys, Nate would say that Listen, I made this shit up. Like you got fucking Logan out there doing his pillow talk, and Conor's not even showing up for press conferences. But fucking, we're doing out here like the OG way, dog. Me and George, we're just like actually, scrapping and shit. I think that'd be his defense, is that it's the old school way and stuff. At least this is what we're used to George's point, right? So there we go.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you guys? We didn't grow up. We grew up like 10 minutes away from all this, where it went down. I wish it would have got more notice. Maybe we would have headed down there. But what did you think of all this? You feel like it did get you a little more pumped up?
It got me a little bit more pumped up because it gave me a reason to care about the fight a little bit more. And to your point, I've been to that Jack in the Box, and that was always two fights. What happened outside and what happened after you ate at that Jack in the Box, because you'd have another fight on your hands in the restroom like 20 minutes later. But there were a lot of scraps going on there. And yeah, I think a lot of people can maybe relate to this, but they got to give you a reason to tune in, right? Like they have to. on paper, the fight doesn't solve much. But when you throw in this heat that's been generated, now it gives you reason to watch.
Danny, are you into all this?
100%. I love this stuff. So long, obviously, nothing. I mean, there was a guy that was injured, right? But like, so long, nothing really bad happens, right? But yeah, of course, this hypes things up, especially for the general public. Like, people are not gonna tune in to watch high level boxing. These guys are not high level boxers. People are not tuning in to watch even prime mixed martial artists fighting in boxing. No, people are tuning in because this is two guys that originated sort of the BMF belt. These are two OGs that are street style, right? So give us that, right? And we got that with that press conference. Their tour promoting this was called the Baddest Tour, right? And we didn't get much spice, much of this. So now that we got it, I feel like people, okay, we might not be getting the highest level of boxing, the highest level of fighting, but we're getting a real fight. And that's what people are tuning in for. So yeah, I'm about it. And I think this helped a ton. I think this little scuffle probably did a lot more than their entirety of the tour they did in those 3 cities a few weeks back.
That postponement was not the worst thing in the world for these guys. That's for sure. Because they would have been going up against 302. Now we got this incident because, yeah, that 4-city tour, which really should have knocked it out of the park. I mean, they went to what was it? LA, Las Vegas, Miami, New York, or something like that.
Yep.
Like, those are major cities. Those are major hubs with combat sports reporting going on, and yet, yeah, it didn't pick up any type of traction like what this one did. Joseph Boza says, Nate now that they will own the combat world July 6th. I think more fans will buy the show, even though I'm not a boxing fan. It was interesting to see this conference. Josh Wallace says they were super worried about Masvidal getting hurt. Haha. Instinct RT says, I don't want to see the brawls, but then I do. I question these guys being 30 plus, 35, needing to be a bit more mature and professional than this. Well, you're not wrong, but they come from the streets, man. Yeah, it's just hard to turn that off. Instinct RT also says, shout out to the Waffle House. So I guess that's where the scraps went down at his end.
As a Florida guy, that's where it goes down. Waffle House. Do you guys have a Waffle House over in the West Coast?
No.
So it's like a breakfast place that's open 24 hours. So like you go, go to the club, go to the bar, have a few drinks, get sauced up, come back to the Waffle House at like 4 a.m. and there's probably like 2 people working. You have some nice hash browns, greasy hash browns, eggs, the whole thing, toasts, and then you go home. Or you can stumble in the parking lot and pick a fight or two. Waffle House, that's where it goes down, both in and outside of Waffle House. I've seen some crazy shit there, George.
For us, it was Jack in the Box and Denny's. Denny's also had some fights. People threw down at Denny's because everyone goes there to kind of sober up. But people are yelling at each other or whatever because, they've been partying and what are you doing in our neck of the woods type of thing. And boom, it was on. How about you, Dan Tom? Well, I know that in the Northeast, I think it was White Castle is where fights used to go down, according to comedian Joey Diaz. How about you, Dan Tom?
Man, I don't know. Like most of the fights that I happened were at shows for me growing up because I was, I did punk rock hardcore shows. So, it was like punks versus hardcore kids, punks versus skinheads. That was a big one that I usually took part in a lot. That was fun. But yeah, usually the fights happen at the shows. And then after we would just go to like Tacos El Gordo by the Hunter's Theater out here, old school Las Vegas reference for you folks. Yeah.
Fremont Street had one the other day. Did you guys see that one? It was kind of circulating a little bit. Goes, did you have any spots? Didn't you say that at Fountain Valley High School there was a fight every day or something like that, or at least multiple fights every day?
At least every day. I remember there was one that had like 90 people in it. The news came. Somebody got stabbed in the head with a screwdriver. But we had a Taco Bell that was like really close by, and a lot of things got solved there.
Who was the principal back then? Art Davey?
He had to wear riot gear, bro. I'm telling you, it was like
Taco Bell. So you go get fucked up at the Taco Bell parking lot, and then you get your guts fucked up later with a nice little combo at Taco Bell.
Yeah, Goes has some great stories from high school. The best 5 years of his life.
Awesome.
But he had some really, really good ones. Let's say with the boxing theme here, you guys hear Mike Tyson and Jake Paul is back on. Remember, Mike Tyson had a medical issue that they didn't get too specific about, but here's some of the updates that we have. They're going to fight on November 15th. It's a Friday, but it was noted there. not a Saturday. Remember, combat sports is more of a Saturday night, but this is a Friday night. It's to accommodate the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans. They're going to be playing a Monday night game, so they need to turn the stadium over. But it is on Netflix. It is at Cowboy Stadium. It has this big feel to it, guys. And Tyson's not going away. He's still going to be fighting Jake Paul. Any thoughts on this recent development, Danny Segura?
I didn't like the idea in the first place. And now with Mike Tyson's health issues and then this getting rescheduled, it just kind of put a bigger dud on it for me. But you can also look at it as like, hey, we did a promotion already for a day. We extended it all the way to November. So it's even more promotion. So technically more people should hear about it. But I don't know. Mike Tyson, dude, he's going to be close to 60, right? By the time he gets going, clearly having some health issues. Even though it's an ulcer, it's not really related to his body mechanics, which are the ones that are going to get him in the fight. But I don't know, man. I don't know. That fight, something about it just doesn't seem right to be fighting somebody 30 years younger than you in a professional fight. And someone that's actually pretty decent. Jake Paul's not bad.
Do we need something like what happened in Anaheim to kind of kick off things? Maybe, we don't want it to be manufactured, but does Tyson need to flip a table? Goes, what are your thoughts?
Flip a table? Hell no. I'll never advocate for Tyson to get out of hand. Keep him under control. Like Danny said, man, at this
age, you don't want him to eat Jake Paul's children and fuck him in the ass and all the
definitely do not try and get his hat. Don't play any of them games
on Netflix.
Yeah. But the thing is, at his age, man, once you get to in your 40s, you just age differently. 1 year doesn't feel like 1 year. It feels like 5 years. And so even delaying this by months, Mike Tyson's body, I don't know, it's not built to do this at this age. And so the thing that makes everything so silly is could he make it to the fight? Probably. Could he maybe give you a couple good rounds? Yeah. And could he maybe even win? It is possible, but that doesn't make everything safe. I just don't understand really what this proves too much. I'm a big Mike Tyson fan, man. I grew up watching this guy. I'd love to see him compete, but I think, the time and place, that's all just gone at this point. And I don't know what this really does. I mean, obviously I get a lot of people are going to tune in. Netflix will make it exciting, but it's very unsafe, man.
Dan, Tom, check me if you have to, but man, I've seen this guy work out. And yes, we shouldn't fall in love with embeddeds, those types of videos or whatever, but he does still have proper mechanics, muscle memory. The power looks like it could still be there. And Jake Paul's really only fought Tommy Fury, right? And lost that fight. Now I get it. There's all kinds of statistics that back up, especially in MMA, if there's a 9-year gap, 70% of the time the younger guy wins. This, that, or whatever, right? But again, we're talking about a legend with a lot of power versus a guy that took a boxing seriously, 3 to 5 years ago. I still stand by Tyson in 2 rounds will put some leather on this guy and knock him into tomorrow. What are your thoughts? Check me if you have to. Let me have it if I have to have it.
I would love for you to be right, man. I'm just not getting my hopes up, man. This is speaking about effing in the A, this feels like, elder abuse. I feel like Jake Paul needs to go to prison and reenact the shower scene from American History X as the character of Edward Norton for what he's doing here, man, to be honest. But I'm not going to get my hopes up for Tyson. I grew up watching Tyson too. And I don't know, this feels like a real age divide. And I feel like everybody who's, all about the, the broccoli, anybody with the broccoli cut, whether it's Raul Rosas Jr. or Jake Paul, they're, oh, root for that guy. Those kids are probably all about this. Whereas people, our ages and older, unless you're like Peter McNeely or something like a Tyson past opponent, I don't think anybody's looking forward to seeing what's going to happen to him, so.
Yeah. Well, it's happening November 15th. There's the update, folks. We still got time for that one to marinate. At least Diaz and Masvidal is happening within the next month. Let's go back to mixed martial arts. Obviously, this past week had an assortment of news. Let's cover it. Tell me the good, the bad, or both. If the story had both, right? Pick one story, event, or fight to highlight and why. Let's go to you. What do you want to highlight?
I want to highlight something that, a lot of times we maybe shit on the UFC for certain things, right? Just within the show, all the different stances that can be made towards whatever, Dana White, Hunter Campbell, the matchmakers. They did something right this time. For those of you who are looking for a little bit more MMA programming, fighting on Roku has been absolutely amazing because it shows you the behind the scenes. And I know we've seen a lot of behind the scenes and Embedded and all those types of shows. This is a little different. It shows you more behind the scenes on them personally and how they handle the business side of this. And I think it actually puts them in a little bit of a better light. There are a couple things that you look at and you go, oh, don't do that. But it really helps you understand how the fight game works in their eyes and their relationships with fighters. It's been absolutely awesome. And we actually have the trailer for this. So if you want to play that, it'd be awesome.
We're in the fight business. Fighting's in our DNA. When you look at how big the UFC has become, you forget what it was like back in the old days.
Dana White took this from a circus, made it a sport.
Athletes, musicians, movie stars, they all come out. This year is our 30th year anniversary. How the hell do we take the business to the next level? Woo! I love getting up out of bed every day and going to war.
The UFC never stops because Dana White never stops.
I like chaos. I eat stress for breakfast.
Media love him.
You're wrong and I'm right. Any other stupid questions? There's all kinds of fighting that goes on here, not just in the octagon.
Personal insults, out of the cage fights.
The rail collapse.
20 people came crashing to the floor.
This entire business is about problem solving. The night before the fight, people are injured.
The doctor is not going to clear him to compete, and it's back to the drawing board.
It's just another day in the office. I love it. UFC fighters, they're not wired like you and me. Very few people make it to that level.
Oh! Let warfare begin.
I was just 19 years old and not being able to provide for my kids. I just felt like I was on my way of being another statistic.
I'm looking for exciting. I'm looking for somebody who has that thing. Sean O'Malley is that thing.
Welcome to the Sugar Show. It's the kind of first time I went viral.
Give that kid a contract!
For me?
Yep, gotta do some jewelry.
There's no off season in the UFC, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The sickness is real.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, if you guys love the fight game, watch this. You're gonna learn a lot of stuff, and you're gonna see a lot of personal things, especially on, you get to see Sean O'Malley, John Jones, a little bit more personal side on them, and just their relationships with, especially people that you don't really hear too much about. Lene on the PR side gets a lot of shine here. Hunter Campbell, you get to learn a lot more from them. We rarely get to hear from the matchmakers. You get to hear their side. So I totally dug this. Hats off to the UFC. You did a great job on this one.
All right, so it's on Roku, and what I've been hearing is people are binge watching it. So it's multiple parts.
There's 3 episodes.
3 episodes.
It goes back.
I got a stupid question. Is it Roku like the device, or is there an app for it?
It's so when you have your Roku, there's something called the Roku channel. You click that and you can watch it there.
Okay, I don't think I have that. So
you should. If you have a Roku, it'll be on there. When you look at all your little apps, it'll be right there.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a Roku. I don't think I do. I gotta go check.
Are you telling us there's other ways you stream events?
Huh?
Are you telling us there's other ways you stream events?
Maybe not.
Well, no, Roku's pretty dope, Danny. I think you'd like it. It's not that expensive, but it'll give you a lot of access to different streaming services. So I highly recommend it. And trust me, I'm the least technical guy in this panel, probably the chat room, and probably the thousands that will listen to this show. But I figured it out, and it's dope.
I'll say this. I haven't seen the show, but I've seen clips that have surfaced on Twitter, and I kind of checked out from a lot of the UFC content, like the countdown embedded, because it's usually just the same thing, and it's promotion. But I was surprised as to how much they showed and what they were showing. So yeah, that's a show that I'm definitely interested in watching, and I'm gonna try to find a way to watch it.
Instinct RT says, thoughts on the Kai Asakura UFC signing? Let's take it to Danny. That's one hell of a pivot.
Yep, that is my pick for highlighting a story. Kai Asakura signs with the UFC. I mean, I am super excited about this. I don't think he will become champion. Maybe, you never know, but this is just pure excitement. That 135 division is already extremely stacked. Very, very, very exciting. And this guy, just with the addition of him in the division now, is going to be even more exciting. He's super legit in terms of who he's beaten. He's got experience. He's just 30 years old, so he's prime. He's beaten guys like Horiguchi, Archuleta, many other notable guys, Manel Cape as well. So this is a legit signing from the UFC. He's also a superstar in Japan. Maybe he might not be as known in the US, but in Japan, he's huge. So finally, we're getting a Japanese star fighting in the UFC. That for so long was a common a trend that we saw, but then over the last few years, that's kind of died down. So we kind of get back some Japanese representation in the UFC, which I love. And dude, this guy's just exciting. Like, it's weird because he doesn't seem technical when he fights, and he kind of just looks like he's in a bar brawl, but it works for him. He wins more often than not. He's got power. He's a savage. He puts on the pressure. He's got a chin. He's got heart. I mean, I'm just savoring at matchups against Figueiredo, Marlon Vera, Jose Aldo, Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt. I mean, anybody at 135 is going to be an exciting scrap. So I'm super excited to see him in the UFC. A great signing. It seems that the UFC and Dan Tom will probably enjoy this comment. Is just used to getting people from the Contender Series, and then they become famous in the UFC. Not really. They don't really get names from outside of the company, but this is one of them. This is one of them. Straight to the UFC. I am super excited to see his debut whenever that is.
I hope they also get Jorge Gucci. He brought his name up. He was also on the same card that they fought this past weekend. He beat Sergio Pettis. This guy was 7-1, 7-1 in the UFC, could speak English, was charming as hell. I mean, great Japanese fighter, one of the best ever. I couldn't believe they parted ways with him about 5 years ago. And the stuff that he's done, winning a Bellator title, winning in Ryzen, he's a stud. I also hope he comes back to the UFC. Dan, Tom, how about you, man? What do you want to highlight? Event, person, news?
Yeah, I will say that I'm excited about that, but guaranteed, back to my rematch thing, I bet you they're going to give him a no cop, because why not? Rematches, that's what all we want to see. Anyways, I do hope to check out that programming that Go said, because maybe we can get down to the answer of like why the matchmakers are like literally have fetishes over low-level heavyweights on main cards and middleweight main events, because that's what the crowd wants, baby. But I'm going to shout out to Chanel Dyer, who won on PFL Europe. She was a female fighter who was on the top of my list. After talking to people like, the Nolan Kings of the world and whatnot, I try to aggregate a list of prospects every year for Junkie, and I whittle it down to like the top 20 or so, and they usually age really well. And of course, Chanel Dyer gets a win. And then also I just wanted to shout out Fumi Nakuda, who's been, the UFC matchmakers has told Longo and company, he's a Sarah Longo guy, that, if he gets finishes, he can finally get in. They're thinking that maybe it's like Aljamain Sterling drama that's keeping him out, because now Fumi Nakuda has yet another finish to his record. I think finished some guy in the regionals who was like 6-7 or won 6 out of his last 7 for whatever that's worth. But the point is, Nakuda, that division, it's really underserved. I can't really talk crap about these points, because whether it's signing Asians or actually like, promoting the flyweight event, where UFC is like on a rare occasion technically doing both those things, which flyweight is like, wow, they're actually promoting it. And then like anything Asian, the UFC, what? They skip the Asian American Pacific Islander month, but like celebrate every other month. Like UFC does not do Asian things, folks. So this is a big deal. So I'm excited for those things, and hopefully we get some new blood in the UFC.
Right on. All right. My highlight is The Ultimate Fighter. I guess they're on season 32 with Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. Look, this first episode that they put out wasn't bad. The fight was really, really good, and it looked like the talent that was there from South Africa and from Mexico. And by the way, they have a big international cast. It does look promising. My problem is that Tough just kind of isn't the jam anymore, man. It's Dana White Contender Series. And my example for this would be, who's won from Tough lately that kind of matters, right? For one, the season with McGregor and Chandler, yeah, it had that one highlight. We all looked forward to it, but Chandler just dominated McGregor's team. Chandler's team dominated McGregor's team. But look at the names that came out of that. Cody Gibson, Austin Hubbard, Kurt Hollabaugh, Brad Katona. Look at the names from the previous season. It was Pena versus Nunes, Muhammad Usman, Juliana Miller, Zach Pogba, Brogan, Walker Sanchez. And then before that, which was Volkanovski and Ortega, Ricky Turcios, Brian Battle, Brady Highstand, Gilbert Urbina. Nobody's really taking off from that group. Nobody's really caring as much from these fighters. And then the coaches themselves, yeah, there's heat between Chandler and McGregor, but this fight's less than a month away, and we don't even know if that one's going down. Nunes versus Pena 3, that's never going to happen. Nunes, that ship sailed, obviously. And Ortega and Volkanovski, it just doesn't have what it provided. It used to have coaches drama. It was a big thing at the end when they would fight, and then the fighters, it showed promise. Now look at Dana White Contender Series and what they've done. Just look at the last. Cesar Almeida came out of last season. Peyton Talbot. Look how high we are on those guys. Zach Reese. He just finished Julian Marquez, this past weekend. And that's just the most recent season. Wait till some of those fighters start to take off. Look at the season before that. Joe Pyfer, Bo Nickel, Fareed Basharat from Extreme Couture, the Bonfim brothers. I mean, there is some Esteban Ribovic, who I think is undefeated and just iced Terrence McKinney.
Mhm.
We're excited about those guys, and that was just 1 year ago. Dana White Contender Series is where it's all at. Why they still do it, I don't know. I don't know that it's a ratings hit. I don't know that people get pumped up about it or anything like that. I will say the first episode was legit, but it just doesn't seem to have that magical formula that it once had, where again the coaches went at it. I would do maybe more challenges between the assistant coaches. Maybe they can get into it a little bit more. I don't know, but I just don't get as excited about it. Now, I did hear one comment years ago that's always stands with me. Do you have anything better to do? Tuesdays at 10 Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And if you don't, the Lakers play usually on Tuesdays at home. That's usually a big deal. But if they ain't playing, do you have anything better to do? I guess not. So if you're a combat sports fan, tune in, give it a chance. Let's see what happens with this season. The first fight was pretty good, but I'm telling you, it just, in my opinion, is blown out of the water by Dana White Contender Series. Folks, that's this week's Spinning Back Clique. You can tune in every Monday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific to check out the MMA Junkie crew that gets together. We rotate the panel and we unpack the biggest stories of the week, give you the latest updates that we have. And of course, for even more current updates, you can go to MMA Junkie and just keep hit and refresh at least 30 times a day. And you'll just see many updates to all the big stories that unfold in our sport. Please, on the way out, if you can hit the like button, it triggers the algorithm. Hit the subscribe button. The subscribe, yeah, there you go, Danny. The subscribe button will basically just get you everything right to your inbox, and that little bell, it'll alert you when we're on live. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate all your support. Share the show with your friends that are MMA fans. I guarantee you they'll like it. And thanks to the comment sections, the chat room, you guys were golden today. We're out of here. Go out and be a champion. We'll talk to you soon.